CEO hears janitor speak 9 languages. What he does next leaves the whole office stunned. At 8:47 a.m., the glass tower of Harrington and Company gleamed like ambition itself. Inside, Amara Johnson pushed her mop bucket across the marble floor, quiet, steady, unseen. Most employees walked past without a glance. Then a courier rushed in, breathless, speaking fast in Polish. Reception froze. Without missing a beat, Amara looked up and answered fluently. The courier's shoulders eased. Seconds later, a contractor shouted on speakerphone in Mandarin. Amara responded as though it were second nature. Spanish, Arabic, Russian. One after another, words spilled from her like music no one expected her to know. Whispers filled the lobby. "How many languages does she speak?" someone murmured. From the mezzanine above, Cole Harrington, the CEO himself, paused mid-step. His sharp eyes locked onto Amara, watching her bend assumptions with nothing but her voice. He descended the staircase, slow and deliberate, until he stood before her. "How many languages, Amara?" he asked quietly. She met his gaze. 9. A silence swept the lobby, one that carried weight, questions, and the kind of tension that could change lives. If stories of courage and justice matter to you, like, subscribe and share. What Cole chose to do next would leave the entire office stunned. The headquarters of Harrington and Company was a fortress of polished glass and ruthless ambition. Every morning, hundreds of employees streamed through the revolving doors, each carrying laptops, lattes, and unspoken hierarchies. In that world of tailored suits and brisk conversations, Amara Johnson, the janitor, moved quietly in the background. She was 32, steady-handed and disciplined, with eyes that noticed everything but lips that rarely spoke. On the 15th floor, the name Cole Harrington dominated like a brand. Cole, the CEO, was known as a man of precision. His navy suits immaculate, his watch set 3 minutes ahead of everyone else's. Employees whispered about him with a mix of admiration and fear. He wasn't cruel, but he was distant, a leader whose approval was harder to earn than his signature on a contract. Amara and Cole's worlds were not supposed to collide. He sat in boardrooms debating million-dollar mergers. She polished the floors outside those rooms after the lights went out. Yet, beneath the surface, tension pulsed, an invisible current that ran through the office halls. The staff had always noticed Amara's silence. "She keeps her head down," some said. "Doesn't talk much." A few mocked her accent when she answered simple questions, mistaking her reserve for ignorance. What they never imagined was that she carried more words than all of them combined. That morning, when Amara spoke in languages they didn't even recognize, the office's rhythm faltered. Laughter that usually rose around the espresso machine turned uneasy. A marketing associate whispered, "How does a janitor know all that?" Another muttered, "Maybe she's showing off." By noon, the rumors had reached the upper floors. Some framed it as impressive, others as suspicious. And at the top, in his glass-walled corner office, Cole Harrington replayed what he had witnessed. A woman whose quiet presence shattered assumptions with a single sentence. For the first time in years, he felt curiosity stronger than control. And when Cole felt something that powerful, it usually meant change was coming. By the next morning, Amara's unexpected display had spread like wildfire through the building. It wasn't just gossip anymore, it was a storm of whispers. In the cafeteria, employees leaned in close over their salads and coffee cups. "Did you hear her? 9 languages, one said. "Impossible. She probably memorized phrases," another scoffed. Cole looked interested though, a third added carefully, lowering their voice. For some, Amara's ability was awe-inspiring. For others, it was threatening. The line between admiration and resentment blurred quickly. Downstairs in the maintenance office, Amara sat quietly eating her simple lunch. 2 colleagues approached her. "Girl, you should have kept that to yourself," one warned. "Why?" she asked calmly. "Because people don't like it when someone they ignore suddenly outshines them," the other replied. Meanwhile, Cole Harrington couldn't get the image out of his mind. Amara standing tall, unflinching, speaking words that bridged worlds. He mentioned her in a meeting almost casually, but the reaction was immediate. One senior manager, Douglas Reed, smirked. "With all due respect, sir, it's a distraction. She's a janitor. We can't encourage theatrics." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Theatrics?" "Yes," Reed continued, leaning back confidently. "If staff start thinking anyone can just walk in here and impress leadership, it undermines structure. Besides, what proof do we have? For all we know, she's making it up." Cole said nothing, but the silence in the room was heavier than words. Later that afternoon, Amara was called into human resources. The HR officer, polite but cold, slid a folder across the desk. "We've had reports," she said. "Some employees feel uncomfortable. They claim you've been creating unnecessary attention." Amara frowned. "By speaking to people in their own language?" The officer cleared her throat. "We just ask that you stay within your role." The message was clear: stay small, stay silent. But fate had other plans. 2 days later, a French client stormed into the lobby, furious, refusing to speak in English. No translator was available. The receptionist panicked, executives scrambled, and the entire deal teetered on collapse. Amara, quietly polishing a corner, stepped forward. She listened, responded fluently, and within minutes the client's anger melted into relief. The lobby erupted into stunned silence. The client, shaking Amara's hand warmly, declared, "If it weren't for her, I would have walked out. She saved your company." Everyone turned. Some faces burned with shame, others with resentment. Reed muttered under his breath, "She's making the rest of us look bad." And at the top of the stairs, Cole Harrington watched once again. But this time he wasn't just curious. He was calculating. Because he knew a storm was brewing, and Amara stood directly at the center of it. The next week unfolded like a test no one had prepared for. Amara's gift had become impossible to ignore, but instead of applause, she faced a storm of quiet hostility. Every corridor seemed to hum with whispered judgments. At the coffee machine, 2 junior analysts whispered, thinking she couldn't hear. "She's just lucky. Knowing a few languages doesn't make her smart." Exactly. If she was that talented, she wouldn't be mopping floors. Amara heard every word. She always did. But she had learned long ago that silence could be its own form of dignity. Yet the silence was tested again when an urgent crisis hit. A high-profile German investor arrived unexpectedly for a site visit. His English was broken and the translation team hadn't been scheduled. Tension grew, voices overlapped, until Amara stepped in with calm precision. Her German rolled out naturally, bridging confusion into clarity. The investor's eyes lit up. "Finally, someone who understands me." Cole Harrington observed the exchange from across the room. For the second time in days, Amara had prevented disaster. But while Cole's curiosity deepened, resentment festered among others. That evening, Douglas Reed confronted Cole in his office. "Sir, with all due respect, this is dangerous." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous?" Reed leaned forward. "She's a janitor. Yet now clients look to her. Staff whisper about her. Do you realize how much power she's stealing from us?" Cole remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the city lights outside. "Or maybe she's revealing how little power we actually use wisely," he said quietly. But Reed wasn't finished. The next morning he spread rumors that Amara had falsified her resume, that she was exploiting her position, that she was secretly angling for influence. Some even muttered ugly stereotypes, their prejudice dripping through casual jokes. Amara felt the shift immediately. Cold shoulders in the break room. Meetings where her name was mentioned only as a problem. One afternoon she overheard an associate chuckling, "9 languages, huh? Maybe she should focus on cleaning the bathrooms better." That night, exhausted, she sat on the building's back steps staring at the city's glow. A younger cleaner, Matteo, joined her. "You know what they're saying, right?" he asked carefully. Amara nodded. "They're afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That the truth doesn't always wear a suit." The very next day the tension boiled over. The company prepared for a major contract signing with an international group of partners. Representatives from Spain, Japan, and the Middle East crowded into the boardroom. The professional translators arrived late, and chaos threatened to derail the negotiations. Once again Amara was summoned, not officially but out of desperation. Standing quietly at the edge of the room, she listened and responded. Spanish flowed into Japanese, Japanese into English, English into Arabic. She moved like a bridge no one expected, her words carrying weight far beyond her job title. When the deal was finally signed, relief washed over the executives. Clients praised Cole for running such a multilingual, culturally aware team. But as the room emptied, Reed muttered venomously, "She's making us dependent on her. What happens if she decides to turn against us?" Cole's patience thinned. "Douglas, you mistake service for sabotage. She has done more for this company in a week than most people do in a year." Still, Reed wasn't satisfied. That evening, Amara was called into another HR meeting. This time the accusations were formal. "We've received reports of misconduct," the officer said stiffly. "You've been overstepping your responsibilities, creating confusion and misleading clients about your role." Amara stared stunned. I never claimed to be anything I'm not. I only helped when no one else could. That may be true, the officer admitted, but perception matters. It was the breaking point. Cole, upon hearing of the charges, slammed his office door and summoned the board. Enough, he declared. This is not about perception. This is about prejudice. The board members shifted uncomfortably. One murmured, "You're accusing us of racism?" "I'm pointing out the truth," Cole said sharply. "We praise talent when it comes wrapped in expensive suits. But when it comes from someone we overlook, we treat it as a threat." The board tried to silence him, insisting that Amara's interference could hurt the company's image. But Cole refused. He demanded a hearing, a formal review where Amara could defend herself. When Amara heard, her hands trembled. She had spent her whole life avoiding the spotlight, knowing it often burned those who didn't fit. Yet here she was, dragged into a confrontation she never sought, facing people determined to break her spirit. That night, she sat alone with her father's old notebook, the one he had filled with sayings in different languages. On the first page, his handwriting read, "Silence protects you, but truth frees you." Amara closed her eyes. For the first time, she felt ready to stop being silent. The stage was set. The confrontation would not only decide her fate, but it would also strip bare the company's soul. And as the day of the hearing approached, everyone in the office whispered the same question. Would Amara's truth be enough to shatter the walls built against her, or would silence win again? The conference hall was packed. Board members sat stiffly at the long mahogany table, papers stacked in neat piles before them. Senior managers filled the rows behind, whispering, watching like spectators at a trial. At the front, Amara sat alone. No mop bucket, no uniform, just a plain blouse and folded hands. Her calmness was deceptive. Inside, her heart pounded like a drum. Cole Harrington entered last, his presence commanding silence. He glanced at Amara briefly, then faced the board. "This hearing," he began, "was called to address accusations that Amara Johnson has misled clients, disrupted workflow, and overstepped her role. Before we proceed, I ask you all one question. What crime is she guilty of? Helping when others failed? Or daring to exist beyond the box you put her in?" Murmurs rippled through the room. Douglas Reed stood quickly, his voice sharp. "With respect, sir, no one doubts she can speak a few languages. But this is a corporate environment. Roles matter. Discipline matters. If every janitor thought they could run board meetings, we'd have chaos." Amara finally spoke, her voice steady. "I never claimed to run meetings. I only spoke when no one else could. If saving a deal is misconduct, then yes, I am guilty." The words landed heavy. Reed smirked. "Convenient. But how do we even know she speaks 9 languages fluently? Maybe it's an act." Cole turned to Amara. "Would you mind demonstrating?" She rose slowly. Turning to the international guests invited to observe, she began. In French, she explained the purpose of truth. In Japanese, she thanked them for their patience. In Arabic, she spoke of dignity. In Russian, she spoke of justice. The words rolled seamlessly, each language opening like a door to a world few in the room could enter. The guests applauded softly, but the board remained stone-faced. Reed, cornered, spat out, "So what? Talent doesn't erase hierarchy. She should know her place." The room froze. The mask had slipped. The prejudice was naked. Cole stepped forward, his voice low but thunderous. "Her place? Let me tell you her place. Her place was holding this company together when language divided us. Her place was saving contracts you were too incompetent to manage. Her place is wherever her talent and dignity take her. And if you can't see that, then perhaps you are the one who doesn't belong here." Gasps filled the hall. The truth, spoken aloud, could no longer be ignored. Amara's eyes burned, but she didn't cry. For the first time she felt the weight lift. Not because the battle was over, but because the silence had finally broken. The board chair cleared his throat awkwardly. "We will review the accusations and deliver a formal decision." But everyone in that room already knew. The decision had been made, not on paper, but in conscience. And it was Amara's courage, not her silence, that had changed everything. The decision arrived 2 days later. A formal statement from the board announced that all accusations against Amara Johnson were without merit. It praised her extraordinary contributions and declared her an official part of the company's international relations team. When the news broke, the office reacted in waves. Some clapped sincerely, others shifted uncomfortably, their prejudice too stubborn to change overnight. But no one could erase what had been witnessed in that hearing. Amara stood once more in the lobby where it had all begun, mop bucket set aside, speaking quietly with a group of foreign clients. Her words, smooth and fluent, bridged cultures as easily as before. Only this time the stares she felt weren't dismissive, they were respectful. Cole Harrington watched from the mezzanine. For a man who built his empire on control, this moment humbled him. Leadership, he murmured to himself, isn't about titles. It's about recognizing truth when it walks through the door. Later, as Amara packed her things from the maintenance office, Matteo, the younger cleaner, grinned at her. "You did it," he said. She shook her head softly. "No. We did it." Every time someone refuses to stay silent, the world shifts a little. Before leaving, she slipped her father's old notebook into her bag. The first page, worn and fading, still read, "Silence protects you but truth frees you." The office would return to its routines. Deals would be signed, meetings held, deadlines chased. But deep in its walls lingered a memory of a woman who spoke 9 languages and in doing so, taught them a universal one: courage. And for those who had watched her stand alone against prejudice, a question remained. When the moment comes, will we choose silence or truth?